everyone. So we're going to get started on this evening's presentation, Behaviors That Challenge Us. I'm here with Janine Shallow. She's a geriatric psych nurse. And before I turn it over to Janine, I am going to just do a couple exercise with you and a couple explanations. So you will see under the heading Behaviors That Challenge Us, expressions of feelings. So we have been doing some work with a gentleman out of the UK, Dr. David Shear, and he really thinks that when we talk about behaviors, they're often seen as such negative issues, and really what people are trying to do, living with dementia, they're trying to express some sort of a feeling to us, whether they're hungry, they're frightened. So his goal would be that in the future, instead of referring to any type of behavior, we actually refer to it as an expression of feeling. So here at the Alzheimer's Society, we're going to adapt that. So that's just where you're going to see my words with that. I am going to ask everybody to take part. I've got a couple examples. Yes, I'll do that here. Correct. Everyone, we see that we're breaking up as far as sound. Is it better if I'm back here? Can be Jode? Oh, it's better then. Okay. So maybe it's just a distance from us to the microphone. Thank you. Let us know if it continues to happen, okay? So we're going to move to the next slide. And I want you to, I'll read this out to you, and I really want you to think about how you're feeling. So you are in a strange building. You have been left in a white room by a young woman you do not know. Another young woman, again a stranger to you, comes in and rolls up your sleeve. She then ties a tight rubber band around your arm. It hurts. The door to the room opens and a man walks in. He is dressed in a suit, and although he addresses you by name, he is unknown to you. The man picks up a needle, takes hold of your arm, and tries to plunge it in. So our questions for you would be, if you think about this, it's going to move slide, what do you think this scenario is? Do you think it's A, someone getting blood work, B, getting medication, C, doctor's appointment, D, it could be any of the above or all of the above, or E, none of the above? So I'm going to ask you guys to pick A, B, C, D, or E, and then we'll publish those results. Okay. So out of the people who answered, everyone felt that it could be any of those above situations. I'm going to ask another question of you. Where do you think this is taking place? Is it in a hospital, a lab, a doctor's office? Could it be any of the above, or could it be none of the above? Again, for what you feel it is, if you could go ahead and answer. Okay, and again, everybody is very correct. It could be any of those situations. So who do you think is the young woman and who is the man? A, could it be a nurse and a lab technician, a nurse and a physician? Could it be any of the above? Again, or do you really think it's none of the above? So I will get you to pull there. Great. So some felt it was a nurse and a physician, or it could be either, a lab technician, a physician, but a nurse. So my next question to you would be, how do you know? What evidence is there to support that? We didn't say anyone had a uniform or no one had a stethoscope, but yet you were able to figure that out. And the reason we do this exercise is we really want you to think how you were able to pull that together is you can rationalize. You can take the information we give you, kind of probably build a picture in your head, and then be able to come together and put that information together. But what if you didn't? What if you had dementia, like your family members? What do they think of that? So for someone with dementia, we're thinking that how would you react if you found yourself in a strange place with strangers and you thought they were going to hurt them or hurt you? So again, if you look, A, defensive, B, fearful or desire to escape, C, verbally aggressive, D, physically aggressive, E, all of the above, or F, again, potentially none of the above. So if you could go again and pull, how do you think you would feel? Defensive, fearful, verbally aggressive, physically aggressive, all of the above. And again, many people answered all of the above. And you would be correct. These are very natural responses in the circumstance. And we would often do something to protect ourselves. But people with dementia, when they try to protect themselves, even though it may be a misunderstanding, they're often labeled with having behavioral issues. So again, it's really just trying to give you the experience of what it may feel like to have dementia. So thank you everyone for taking part in that. I am going to turn it over now to Janine. I'll let Janine introduce herself a little bit more about her background, and then we will just head forward. So everybody, this is Janine Chimello.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm new at doing a session like this, so bear with me. Like Arlene said, my name is Janine, and I work for Alberta Health Services, part of a program called Continuing Care Psychiatric Consulting Services. And we offer our services to all continuing care and designated assisted living sites within the Edmonton region. So there's a team of 13 or 14 nurses, and we go out on a doctor's request, and we help the nursing staff deal with certain behaviors that they may be challenged with while caring for dementia type clients in the settings. So Arlene has told you how to type in questions, so please type in your question and we will address them at one point or another during the session. So what are behaviors that challenge us? So what is BPSD, or behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia? So they are behaviors that are in actions or words or gestures that are a response to something that is happening in the person's current environment. They're often unpredictable, and they can include things like agitation, wandering, depression, psychosis such as hallucinations and delusions. They can be things like screaming, aggression, and sometimes sexually disinhibited behavior. So BPSD are responses to what's happening in the environment. They affect approximately 90% of people with dementia. And if you look at that slide, it says that in 2014, there's 747,000 people with dementia that require 3 caregivers. And by the year 2034, 1.4 million people with dementia will require 4.2 million caregivers. That's significant. And if our family members have dementia, that's a lot of caregivers that's going to be needed. How common are these behaviors? Very common. Between 80 and 97% of people with dementia will experience at least one of these behaviors at some point during their illness, during their dementia process. Some of these behaviors are more distressing to clients and caregivers or the caregiver than other of the behaviors, and these are very, very individual. And you can see on this slide that these behaviors increase to about 80% when people are moved into a facility such as the continuing care or DAL site. So for caregivers, oftentimes the issue is when we're talking about in a facility, the issue is more the limited staff that are required to monitor while we're trying to rule out what's happening and develop a treatment plan. But 50 to 90% of caregivers consider physical aggression the most difficult. And that is often what leads to family members having to be placed in a facility. And it's often the reason that there's a referral to a mental health services, because it's one of the most difficult to manage. And it often contributes to work-related stress within facilities. Staff just don't have the time to sit and really brainstorm and figure out all the different ways that they can approach this. And that's usually why they call us. Why do these behaviors occur? They occur because there's changes in the brain. And these changes affect memory, judgment, orientation, mood, and behaviors. And as Arlene had said earlier, all behavior has meaning, and someone with dementia can't always tell us what it is, and we have to be that detective and figure out what that behavior is trying to tell us. How long do these behaviors last? They're very individual. I would like to say it's, 2 days and we're done with it, but it's not. It's very individual. And as one behavior resolves, another might develop, and language can exacerbate behaviors. Language can make things so much worse. Sometimes, you go into a store and the person at the register is from another culture and speaks another language, so they have a heavy accent. And how do you feel when you don't quite get what it is they're trying to say? Someone with dementia who's trying to communicate and their original language is Italian and they're trying to talk to somebody who speaks Chinese, it can really cause behaviors to escalate. And many of these behaviors are related to simple things such as the environment or caregivers. So small changes can have a huge impact on a person with dementia. Just taking your family member out of the house, which is comfort, and they know what this place is, and taking them to a doctor's appointment. That's a change in their routine. That can really cause agitation and stress for people with dementia. Go to some places where they have paging systems that people hear voices, and then we're saying they're hallucinating, they're hearing voices, when in all it is actually it's an overhead pager that they're hearing. Medication is not always the answer. All medications have side effects, and medications interact with each other, and medications can increase behaviors. We often are prescribing them to decrease behaviors, but sometimes people have the opposite effect. Reporting behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia often falls to the family. People with dementia aren't able to report signs and symptoms. They can't say, I have a headache, or my leg hurts, or I'm bored. And it comes onto the family to figure it out and report those symptoms. And I think about one of the ladies that I cared for who had some very bizarre behaviors, and she was often screaming at the staff and telling them what to do, and very, very inappropriate the staff felt. But once we talked to the family, we found out that was really normal behavior for her. That was how she always was before her dementia process. So it's very individual, and small changes can certainly increase behaviors. How responsive are these behaviors to medications? Well, this is a list of some that are less likely to respond to medication. And I use the word less likely to respond. They may respond, but it's less chances of it. All behavior has meaning, and it's a response to something. Your family member is needing or wanting something. And we need to ask ourselves, why is this behavior occurring? Using medications can often lead to more issues. Someone who's wandering might need to use a bathroom. That might be something so simple as I have to go to the bathroom and I just got out of my chair and I'm wandering. I don't know what it is. I don't know where I need to go. I just have to go somewhere. And so it comes to the family or staff to maybe figure that out and take your family member to the washroom. Medications are going to lead to safety issues, going to lead to more falls when people are wandering or pacing or exit seeking. Avoiding inappropriately. It might be better to ask what happened in the past. Is somebody using a garbage can for the bathroom, for the toilet, instead of going to the toilet? Maybe be simpler to just move the garbage can rather than trying to use medications. Consider adapting clothing. You know, idle hands are the devil work, and just sometimes people are labeled as sexually inappropriate because they're exposing themselves. But if you got your hands in your lap and there's a zipper there and the zipper is just saying, here I am, play with it, you know, or there's buttons on the blouse and oh, they undo, and next thing you know that you've exposed yourself and now your family member is labeled as sexually inappropriate when in fact that's not what it is. So sometimes just adapting the clothing, putting shirts on with no buttons or pull-up pants. Sometimes we have to resort to back fastening outfits. And I just had a very lengthy consult with a client in one of the continuing care centers who this lady did not want to wear pants. She refused. And staff would put the pants on and she would pull them up to her knees, and that's as far as they would go. And so my suggestion was a dress. How simple is that? Instead of trying to put this woman into pants, put a dress on her. And everyone thought that was never going to work. But when they finally tried and it was a back fastening dress, it was easy for her to put on. It didn't hurt her joints. Trying to lift her arms above her head, it worked beautifully. So just something so simple as that. Someone who's repetitive or vocal, medications are not going to stop that behavior. It's just going to make them repeat what they're asking more slowly and maybe a little bit more quietly, but they're not going to stop asking those questions. Rummaging and hoarding is common. People with dementia do this, and the ideal would to have people who rummage and hoard living with people who rummage and hoard, so that when you're going through my stuff, I'm not mad because I'm going through the other guy's stuff too. And so you have to think about those kind of things. And it's a normal behavior. It's common. People do this all the time. Eating things that are not edible, you know, those plastic fruit that look real. Better idea would maybe now it's time not to have those out on the counter. And I have a girlfriend who has the most beautiful fruit, and every time I'm there I have to poke it to see if it's real or not, and it's never real, but it looks so good. It looks like you should eat it. So maybe those are things that you need to start putting away. And someone who's resistant to care, the yo-yo effect, you know, you're trying to change the pants, so you're pulling the pants down and they're pulling them up, that yo-yo effect. Medications are not going to stop that behavior. You have to come up with other ways of managing it, and it might be distraction, giving them something to hold on to instead of buying medication. When I worked at Alberta Hospital, we had a gentleman who loved his dog, and this yo-yo effect was awful with this man. And when we finally clued in to his real love for this dog, and we gave him a picture of his dog, and we would stand him in front of the mirror, and he would talk to his dog, and we could do all the care we needed to do with this man. Never ever needed medication. Sometimes medication is not the answer, and these behaviors are less likely to respond to it. Do you have any questions at this point? I think Arlene is hoping that you'll type them in. If I've answered your questions regarding the above, if you can just say yes or no before I move on to the next.
So for the person who marked no, if you would like to type Janine a question, again, please just mark it in the box over by the word send. And we will be talking to more later on, Janine, about the approaches, right, on how we can do this. So potentially we may cover it there. But so we also know sometimes people accidentally click on one when they don't. So if somebody has a question right now, please feel free to type it in. Other than that, we will move along. Okay. Yeah, no problem. That's good. We'll just keep moving on and we can type away after.
So behaviors that may respond to medication. So I talked about what is less likely to respond. These behaviors may respond, but not always. It's very individual again. So you might need to try numerous different medications before finding one that produces the desired effect that you're looking for. And the dose should always start small and increase as necessary. Never let your doctor prescribe a large dose. And if you have a concern, talk to the pharmacy. It's very, very difficult once it's started at a large dose to decrease it. That medication is in the person's system and it's harder to get it out, so it's always better start at a low dose, make sure there's no side effects, they can tolerate the medication, and increase it only as necessary. Review the medications on a regular basis. That is so important. Once a medication is started, it does not mean it stays there forever. In this job, we consider ourselves those detectives, and in a facility we go in and we do a chart review. So we start from the beginning to the end and we go through a very thick medication list. And sometimes people have come in from acute care or from their home and they are on 20 to 30 medications. And the psychiatrists we work with are always amazed that this is allowed because half of these medications people do not need. So really review them on a regular basis. So some behaviors that may respond to medication are anxiety or depression. And in dementia, it's very difficult to determine if somebody is depressed or just unmotivated. We have screens that we use, but it's not always the easiest thing to determine. So sometimes we do recommend an antidepressant just to see if that does make a change in the behavior. And if not, we're the first ones to say get rid of the antidepressant. Delusions and hallucinations oftentimes require medications. Somebody who is hallucinating or who is delusional doesn't always need medication. We have to ask ourselves, who has the problem with this behavior? I saw a lady one time who wouldn't sleep in her bed, and they had taken the legs off her bed because she was a really short lady, and so the mattress and box spring were right on the floor, and she wouldn't sleep in her bed. There was no way this woman would get into her bed. And after we got there to see her, she was seeing mice crawling along the ceiling, between the ceilings and the wall, and there was no way she was going to get into that bed and go to sleep because those mice were going to get to her. She needed to have her hallucinations treated because they were interfering with her day-to-day activity. I saw another lady who was seeing children jumping on her bed, and these children, only time they disturbed her was when it was after lunch and she wanted to go and lay down, and she couldn't because these kids were on her bed. And we had decided not to treat with medication, and unfortunately one day a casual nurse came on and this lady was talking about these children jumping on her bed. She called the doctor on call who prescribed an antipsychotic medication. The woman reacted very, very badly, almost died, but she did come back eventually to the facility and we got her off the medication. And what we did was every day after lunch, the staff would go into her room and say, okay, all the kids, let's go, everybody out. Mrs. So-and-so needs to have her sleep. So all the kids would leave, she'd have her nap, and when she got up, the kids were back. And she liked having the kids in her room, so we didn't feel that that was a hallucination that needed to be treated. Just who's having the problem with the behavior? Me as the person experiencing it, or me as the caregiver? Ask that question. Physical aggression oftentimes needs to be treated with the medication, and disinhibited behaviors. That's a very tough one, and that's the sexually disinhibited behavior. In all these years that I have worked in this job, very, very few people have ever fit into that category, and it's almost a talk on its own, so I won't go into that one. So have I answered your questions regarding the above responses to medications? If you can type in the yes or no again before I move on to the next part. Great. All right, so how do we cope with these responsive behaviors? You need to look for a cause. Alberta Health Services has a mandate out there that there's a holistic approach for managing, for examining the behaviors with seniors, and it's called a PIECES approach. And each one of the letters stand for something. So the P is for the physical. So you need to rule out physical causes for the behavior when you're looking for those causes. And oftentimes in the elderly, pain is one of the most missed or undiagnosed things that cause behavior with our clients with dementia. A urinary tract infection is another one. So if you notice a change in your family member, take them to the doctor. There's a change, something's not right, and ask to be investigated physically. Oftentimes it is a urinary tract infection. Something pain, we often will say Tylenol 2-3 times a day. If it makes a difference in your behaviors, great and wonderful. You don't need to go to the doctor. You don't need a prescription for it. Make sure your family member is not in pain. Intellectual in the pieces. So the P is physical, the I is intellectual. So expectations are related to education. So when I go to do an assessment on somebody who has some responsive behaviors, I need to know where they came from. Is this somebody who has a university degree, or is this somebody who has a grade 3 education? I have different expectations on what I want from them because of their intellectual background. The E is emotional. Are they depressed? Are they anxious? Are these behaviors related to an adjustment disorder? We need to know those things. You need to look for the cause. What has changed and the onset? Is it sudden or gradual? Sudden would make me think it's physical. It's a delirium. Gradual, it may be just the dementing process. In the pieces, the P is physical, the I is intellectual, the E is emotional, the C is capabilities. What can they still do? Am I setting this person up for failure? Am I asking them to do something that they're not able to do? Giving them too many instructions? Do I need to break it down instead of saying, here's your shirt and put it on? Maybe I have to say, put your left arm in. Break down those steps now. The E, environmental. Is the noise in the environment increasing the behaviors? Is there issues with the caregiver? Is my family member lost? They don't recognize where we are anymore, and this is very distressing for them, and it's causing the behaviors. The S is social. So their past experiences and life styles. Any clues from someone's childhood or their employment. will help us decide on, is this a behavior that we need to really use medication, or do we need to look at different approaches on how to manage the behavior? We need to ask these questions to help identify the cause, because every behavior has meaning and we just have to find out what the meaning of it is. We need to ask ourselves as caregivers, who has the problem with this behavior? Me as a caregiver or me as the person with dementia? So you need to know the person's history, medications. Do they need these medications? Sometimes they're the worst thing to have, the medications. Is this somebody who needs a medication holiday? Get rid of the medications and start over. Let's look at each behavior one by one. Life events. Has something happened in their life? Has something changed? And changes in mental status. If they're deteriorating, is that part of the dementia process, or is that a behavior that we need to look at? The education that I talked about before. As cognition continues to decline, behaviors may change. They may get worse, they may improve. What if I do nothing and just leave them alone? Quality of life decreases for both the person with dementia and the caregiver. And it can lead to increased caregiver stress. It can lead to increased functional decline. So the person with dementia, their ability to mobilize or weight bear or eating may all go on the tube. They may get worse. It can lead to admission to a care facility and increased financial costs because of lost time at work for family members. Do nothing, there are consequences. Approaches. How are we going to manage these behaviors? Now that we know about the behaviors, what are we going to do? The first thing should be non-pharmacological. All our approaches are individual, person-centered. I am here for my family member with dementia. I am not here for me as a caregiver. Each time we approach our family member, introduce yourself. And I had staff at a facility the other day laugh at me. They said, "This man knows who you are." And I said, "Right now he does. But when I come back in 10 minutes, he probably is not going to know me." And they said, "Yeah, he remembers. And so I left and did some other stuff. And when I was going by, he was sitting at the table and I stopped to talk to him. He said, "We've never met." And I said to the staff, that's how quickly people forget. When you have dementia, it's very quick. Short-term memory is gone. And so introduce yourself all the time. Look for triggers. What changed? What's happened? Why is there a behavior? What's gone on? Are they looking for the bathroom? Are they hungry? Is it something so simple as that? Be aware of body language, your own body language as well as your family member. Standing with your arms crossed and a scowl on your face doesn't make you look happy, and it might make you're frustrated and you don't know what to do, and so you're just standing there. But somebody with dementia might interpret that differently, and they may see you as threatening, a dangerous person, not a nice person. So just be aware of your body language. Flexible and creative. What works today might not work this afternoon, might not work next week. I saw a gentleman the other day who is from Trinidad, and he used to work in the remand center. He has dementia, and nice man, but he always is asking if he has any charges. And the staff were dumbfounded with this. They didn't know what to do. So of course, when I went through his chart, I found out he worked at the remand center. So his charges were two things. He wanted to know if he had charges at the facility because he's eating there, so I have to pay that bill. And he also wanted to know about criminal charges. So when I said to the staff, this is what this man is looking for. Let's get a letter written to him from the facility using letterhead saying, all your bills are paid, as well as another one that says there's no outstanding criminal charges. Give him a copy of each letter that he can have on his person, and also post each of those letters in his room, so every time the staff were there, they could reassure him what a difference it made. Something so simple as that, and the staff never thought about it. and weren't aware of his background. So you have to be that detective and be creative. Confrontational. You're gonna argue, you're gonna lose every time. I promise that. It's not a battle. It's not a hill you want to die on. So don't confront. Communication is key. Visual cues or demonstrate. Sometimes we're asking a family member to do something they can't. So show them what you want them to do. And a lot of times when I'm out to see somebody and I want to sit and have coffee with them. That's the way we start our interview. And they don't know what to do with the coffee cup. And I'll pick up my coffee cup and I will drink and oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes I help them with their coffee cup. Clear 1 or 2-step instructions, really important. You know, sometimes we ask for too much. Quickly. Face to face. When I can see you, I can see that you're a safe person, you look nice, you look friendly, it looks like I can talk to you. Don't talk to somebody from the side. They can't always see you. Use distraction versus orientation. It doesn't matter what the date is today. And I do not know what the date is today because it doesn't matter. I carry a day timer around. I've got my phone. I've got all these other cues. I don't know. And so why are we insisting that our family members know that today is Monday, November 9? It doesn't make a difference. Sometimes just distracting them instead of trying to orientate them. Family member centered. Our family is all part of this care team and everybody needs to be looked after. Yes, keep it short and simple or keep it slow and simple. Don't give too much instructions at one time. It sometimes can be very agitating. And I think about when someone's talking at me and talking lots and I'm distracted, I get agitated. Humor. Humor is going to be the best thing. It's going to be what saves everybody's lives. Because if you can't laugh at what you're doing or what happened today, you're going to be in the hospital and not there for your family member. So when you use humor, it's a great approach. Pay attention to your family members' mobility. Are they comfortable? That is so important. Do they need a cushion? Do they need a special chair or a walker? And I think about myself sitting. Sometimes I can adjust my position as often as I want, but sometimes I must move 100 times in an hour because I can't sit still. Our family members can't always move on their own. We as caregivers need to pay attention to that. Are they getting enough to eat and drink? Maybe it's time to provide them with finger foods so that when they're walking, they can eat. This gentleman I talked about earlier, he said to me, I take a tablet, I pee, and I'm hungry. And he's not getting enough to eat, and nobody clued into this. They were giving him snacks, but he didn't know what to do with it. We have to make sure that finger foods may be what we need to use. Are the behaviors related to the need for exercise? A past routine, maybe your family member, somebody who has walked 5 miles a day, and now they're not getting outside. Think about what they did in the past. Dehydration is often can exacerbate or make dementia present worse. So make sure that they're getting enough to drink. And that is very hard to get any elderly person, whether they have dementia or not, to drink. So be aware for sure. Engage in appropriate daytime activities. Are there things for your family members to do? But it has to be things that they like. Don't send them to bingo if they don't like to go to bingo. And one gentleman loved to golf, and so his family member used to, in the afternoon, trying to get him to rest because he wouldn't stop wandering. They put golf on TV, and he would sit and watch a golf game. So that at least got him resting. His feet were elevated, and then he wasn't irritable later in the evening. Be aware of the immediate environment. Is it noisy? Is it dark? Is it cluttered? All of those things can make behaviors worse. Think about going to West Edmonton Mall anytime soon. It's noisy, it's busy, it's overstimulating, and for me, it's very agitating. And I have to go there this weekend because my daughter has to pick up a dress, and I am not looking forward to it. I'm already getting stressed just thinking about it. So think about what's happening in the environment. Little things can exacerbate behaviors. Medication only if necessary. That is so important. And I know in one of the sessions, they'll be talking about the Safely Home program. So you want to make sure that your family member has ID bracelets. The smoke detectors in your home are working. And it might be time that you have to limit access to appliances in your home. Maybe have to unplug the stove or the toaster and make sure the kettle is put away. Seek assistance from professionals. It says for professionals. I should say from professionals. There are people available for you and your family member. There are doctors, geriatricians, specialists such as the NARD program at the Glen Rose in Edmonton. There are support groups with the Alzheimer's Society. There are social workers. There are your pharmacists. There are lots of people out there. You just have to ask for the help. You're not alone. So that's all I have to say, and I just want to end my session with these comments that I found were very moving for me. They said a lot, and these were said by people with dementia. We can't expect the person with dementia to change. We must change. So we as the caregivers have to change. We need to accept their family member as they are now. Nice that if they were the same as they used to be, but we have to deal with the here and now. And our family member may forget what you said, but we'll never forget how you made them feel. So if you have any questions, please type them in. I'm more than willing to help if I can.
Janine, while everybody else is typing their question, my question to you would be, so I know families who have someone in a care facility here in Edmonton, they can request your team to come out. Do you have any ideas for people outside of Edmonton? So whether someone's from Red Deer or Swan Hills or wherever, how would they get this type of help? And if you're not sure, then is it possible if these things come up in the future that if they get a hold of their local Alzheimer's Society, we are able to reach out to you and you can give some suggestions that way? Can I get you to respond to that?
I really don't know what's available in other areas. I know in Camrose there's Rosehaven, and they have a fabulous resource center there that you could access. But otherwise, I don't know. But yes, if you contact the Alzheimer's Society, I am more than willing to help try and answer any questions or guide you with any issues that you might have.
Perfect. The other thing I just want everybody else to know is that we do have a couple other handouts that you can download. And Ashley had listed the Dropbox area. The link was at the beginning, and maybe Ashley will be able to just drop it on there again. There it is. Thanks, Ashley. So on that Dropbox, you will find a document called Managing Triggers, and there's a link to that. And that is a really good little article. There's also fact sheets on restraints, tracking devices, and then we also have our Safely Home information on there. So for those of you who are not aware of the Safely Home is run through Medic Alert, and we will, it has a whole bunch of questions, so it's really an application form. The idea is that someone will get a Medic Alert bracelet, but it's a specialized dementia bracelet. And that way, if someone wanders, you lose them in the big mall, anything like that, you can call Medic Alert and they will start activating police services. Vice versa, if someone finds your family member, they'll call Medic Alert and Medic Alert will call you, or they will call the ambulance if needed, or police. But the best thing is that it's just a formal way of tracking someone living with dementia. The police would prefer you don't put your phone number or your address, just in case
your family member living with dementia is found by someone who might not be as nice and helpful as other people are. So the Safely Home information is in the Dropbox as well. And other than that, good. So we do have a question. So Janine, I'll turn that over to you.
So the question is regarding sexually disinhibited behavior, and they're looking for those small percentage of people that we do have that are truly sexually disinhibited, some tips and strategies. First of all, if somebody is truly sexually disinhibited, the first thing I would suggest is that you have some blood work done. You want some hormone levels checked. If it is a male, one of the questions I would ask is, do they have an erection? That's very important to know, because if they are having an erection, then maybe they need to have a medication that's going to, it's a hormone, and of course I can't think of that hormone drug right now, but that is what we would be giving if they are having an erection and very sexually disinhibited. So the first thing would be physical. Look into the physical. Do they have a urinary tract infection? You know, it can present as something so bizarre as sexually disinhibited behavior. But some blood work, a urinalysis, and some strategies, you know, the back fastening clothing. Sometimes we've had to sew t-shirts to pants and open them up the back so that people can't actually expose themselves. And I hope that answers your question. But the first thing I would do is physical investigation, get some blood work done, and urinalysis.
And it's also a little bit too, not with the extreme cases, but with the not as extreme cases where, as you said, someone finds their zipper, they opening, closing their zipper, they find something to play with. Some of that is also just us needing to know that some of this is natural. Is that correct?
Sure. I always like to say we're sexual beings from the minute we're born to the minute we die. And just because I have dementia doesn't mean I don't have sexual feelings. And so, yeah, it is normal, and sometimes we as caregivers are the one that have the hang up, and it goes back to me saying, who has the problem with the behavior, that we have to ask ourselves every time. Is it me as a caregiver or me as the person with dementia?
Great, thanks, Janine. We'll just give everybody else just a couple minutes if they have any questions for Janine. While we are waiting to see if anyone has any questions, we just wanted to let everybody know that next week there is not a session on Monday. So we are skipping Monday the 16th, and we'll be back on November the 23rd. Again, that's Monday at 6 p.m. And we'll be talking about those communication issues. You've heard Janine say that so much, sometimes it's, language, communication, do they understand it? So we will have a speech pathologist here to help us guide us through some of those communication challenges that people living with dementia, and as well as the care partners who are caring for them, some things that you can do to help out people as they go. So I would say that, Janine, we'd just like to thank you so much. Thank you for everybody out there who's taken some time this evening to join in with us. And we are working on getting a better microphone so that we won't have to be playing with it as much. So thank you, everyone, and we will sign off for this evening.
Thank you.